So today we will learn about the transport of carbon dioxide in the blood. As we know that carbon dioxide is produced in the tissues and from lungs or from the air, the oxygen reaches to every part of the body, or we can say that every tissue of the body. First of all, the oxygen reaches the tissues and diffuses into the tissues. The process of diffusion takes place through the capillaries. Here, the diffusion process involves the capillaries also. And from tissues, carbon dioxide diffuses into the blood and is transported to the lungs for expelling out. The tissues produce carbon dioxide by the breakdown of glucose. ठीक. By the breakdown of glucose, carbon dioxide is produced, and that carbon dioxide is transported to the lungs through blood. But today we will learn how the carbon dioxide is transported, or by which mechanisms the carbon dioxide is transported from the tissues to the lungs where it is expelled out. First of all, we know that the carbon dioxide is an metabolic waste which must be removed from the body, and there are three means by which the carbon dioxide is transported through the blood. The first form is in the dissolved form, the second is as bicarbonate ion, and third is the carb amino hemoglobin form. First of all, we will learn about the dissolved form. Now, dissolved form is similar to the transport of the oxygen, but the difference here is that only 3% of the oxygen is transported in the dissolved form, but in the dissolved form, carbon dioxide is transported about 7%. So 7% of the carbon dioxide is transported in dissolved form, where carbon dioxide first reacts with the water in presence of the enzyme. Here we can write as E1, which gives H2CO3, and that reaction takes place in presence of the zinc ions, Zn positive ions. Now this carbonic acid carbonic acid is broken down or split into two products. One is the proton and other is the HCO3 negative, which is the bicarbonates. Now these bicarbonates, they don't enter into the RBCs and remain in the plasma of the blood. Now these bicarbonate ions, which are present only in the plasma, they are considered in the dissolved form. Now in dissolved form, carbon dioxide first reacts with the water and form the carbonic acid, and then carbonic acid is split into the proton and bicarbonates, and this enzyme here E1 is the carbonic anhydrase enzyme. Now carbonic anhydrase does a very important reaction here, where carbon dioxide is first reacted with the water to form carbonic acid, and later it is split again by the same enzyme, that is the E1, to form the bicarbonate ions, and those bicarbonate ions remain in the plasma, and that is why it is considered in the dissolved form. And the point to remember here is the amount of the carbon dioxide which is transported in the dissolved form, and that is only about the 7%. So 7% of the carbon dioxide is transported in the dissolved form. The most important thing here is the bicarbonate ion. Now bicarbonate ion remains an elaborate mechanism, or it is transported or carried out from the tissues to the lungs by a different mechanism. First of all, the carbon dioxide here, same mechanism, carbon dioxide reacts with the water and is converted into H2CO3, same reaction, but here the enzyme is also E1, that is the carbonic anhydrase, but this reaction takes place inside the plasma of RBCs. Plasma of the RBCs. Now inside the plasma of RBCs, there is also the presence of the enzyme E1, that is the carbonic anhydrase. So carbonic anhydrase does the same reaction, that is the combination of the carbon dioxide with the water to form the carbonic acid, and later carbonic acid is broken down to form the H positive plus HCO3 negative. Now, the point to remember here is that when the bicarbonate is formed inside the RBCs, this is formed inside the RBCs, this bicarbonate is expelled out from the RBCs and comes into the blood plasma. Now, the whole reaction, I can write the whole reaction like this. Suppose this is an RBC. First of all, carbon dioxide from the tissues diffuses into the RBC, where it is reacted with the water molecule to form the H2CO, H2CO3, and again the H2CO3 is then split down into H positive plus HCO3 negative. Now this HCO3 negative is expelled out from the RBCs into the plasma, that is H2 HCO3 negative. Now here H positive ion concentration will go on increasing, and the amount of the positive charge inside the RBC will increase. In order to accommodate this increase in the positive charge inside the RBCs from the blood plasma, the Cl negative ion, that is chloride ion, enters into the RBCs. Now this reaction or this transport is called as the chloride shift, or it is also called the Hamburger's phenomenon. Chloride shift or Hamburger's phenomenon. Now chloride shift or Hamburger's phenomenon occurs when bicarbonate is transported out of the RBCs, and in place of bicarbonate ions, chloride ions from the plasma enters into the RBCs. Now this reaction takes place at the tissues, that is we can divide this reaction, and this takes place at the tissues of the body. Now this form of blood now goes on and enters into the lungs. Now inside the lungs the whole process is reversed. Now what occurs during the blood enters, when the blood enters into the lungs, the bicarbonates HCO3 negative, which was inside the plasma, it again enters into the RBCs, that is HCO3 negative enters into the RBCs, and chloride ions are expelled out. Okay? So chloride ions are expelled out, and HCO3 negative then reacts with the H positive to form the H2CO3, which gets split up into H2O plus CO2. Now this CO2 is expelled out of the lungs during the expiration process. Now expiration process takes place at the lungs, where the carbon dioxide, which is formed by the combination of the H positive and HCO3 negative, it is expelled out by the expiration process. Now this whole phenomena takes place at the two levels. First level, which occurs in the tissues, and second, which occurs in the lungs. So we can divide the transport of the carbon dioxide as bicarbonate ions in two regions. First region is the tissue, and second region is the lungs. The reactions which takes place in the tissues are reversed when the blood reaches the lungs. Now this whole process involves the transport of about 70% of carbon dioxide. Now 70% of carbon dioxide is transported in the form of the bicarbonate ion, where carbon dioxide first reacts with the water to form the carbonic acid, and carbonic acid is split down into H positive and HCO3 negative, that is bicarbonate. Later bicarbonate leaves the RBCs and enters into the blood plasma, and in place of bicarbonate, chloride ions enter into the RBCs to accommodate the increase in the positive charges. Later when the blood reaches the lungs, the chloride are expelled out, and in place of chloride the HCO3 negative, which was expelled earlier into the plasma, enters into the RBCs, which reacts again with the H positive ion to form the H2CO3, and later H2CO3 is split down into H2O, that is water molecule, and carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide is then expelled out by the lungs through the process of the expiration. Now the third process of the transport of the carbon dioxide in the blood, that is the carbaminohemoglobin. Now carbaminohemoglobin, first we studied the transport of the carbon dioxide in the form of dissolved form. Second, we studied the transport of carbon dioxide in the bicarbonate ion, and third is the transport of the carbon dioxide as carbaminohemoglobin. The third is as carbaminohemoglobin. Now carbaminohemoglobin, it is also similar to the transport of oxygen, where oxygen reacts with the hemoglobin. Similarly, when the carbon dioxide is transported as carbaminohemoglobin, carbon dioxide reacts with the hemoglobin to form HbCO2. Now this HbCO2 is the carbaminohemoglobin. Now this carbaminohemoglobin is formed, but the carbon dioxide does not react with the heme part of the hemoglobin. Now the difference between the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide is that carbon dioxide does not react with the heme part, but the oxygen always react or adds on the heme part of the carbon dioxide of the hemoglobin. But carbon dioxide reacts with or adds on the globin part of the hemoglobin, that is the protein part of the hemoglobin. The carbon dioxide reacts or adds on the globin or the protein part of the hemoglobin to form the carbaminohemoglobin, and this carbaminohemoglobin is formed in the tissues, and later when the blood reaches the lungs, the process is reversed, that is hemoglobin is formed again and carbon dioxide is released out from the hemoglobin, and this carbon dioxide is then expelled out of the lungs. Okay. There are three processes, and the third one is the as carbaminohemoglobin, and in carbaminohemoglobin, which is similar to the transport of the carbon dioxide, when the oxygen reacts with the hemoglobin, but carbon dioxide when reacts with the hemoglobin to form carbaminohemoglobin, it does not react with the heme part, but rather it reacts with the globin part, that is the globin is the protein part of the hemoglobin, because hemoglobin is made up of two parts. One is the heme part, which is non-protein, and second is the globin part, which is the protein part. So protein part of the hemoglobin is globin, and carbon dioxide always reacts with the non-heme, that is the globin part of the hemoglobin to form carbaminohemoglobin. And when this carbaminohemoglobin reaches the lungs, hemoglobin and carbon dioxide, they are split apart, and hemoglobin is formed and carbon dioxide is then expelled out from the lungs. So these are the three processes or the three mechanisms by which the carbon dioxide is transported from the tissues to the lungs, where the carbon dioxide is then expelled out. The first mechanism is in the form of in dissolved form, the second is as bicarbonate ions, and third is as carbaminohemoglobin. In dissolved form, there is only 7% of the carbon dioxide which is transported. As bicarbonate, there is about 70% of the carbon dioxide which is transported, and in carbaminohemoglobin form, the amount of carbon dioxide which is transported is about 20 to 25%. So So 20 to 25% of the carbon dioxide is transported in the form of the carbamino hemoglobin, which makes about the total as 100%. So whole of the carbon dioxide is transported from the tissues to the lungs. Hope you understand the topic clearly, and we will meet in the next lecture. Thank you.